So here's a scenario I think we're all familiar with. You've had a plant for a while, you brought it home, it was doing fine, and a few weeks, months go by, and all of a sudden you notice, oh gosh, my plant's not looking so great. And then you spend a lot of time, money, and energy trying to bring that plant back, trying to help it turn the corner, and it never really does. And you think it's something that you did wrong with your plant, and that you're a terrible plant parent, and oh my gosh, I can't keep anything alive. When really, that plant had an underlying condition at the plant store when you first got it, and it just didn't show any symptoms until now. So it's really some tips and tricks or a checklist of things to keep in your mind the next time you're plant shopping of what to do to make sure you choose a healthy plant, and what to do when you bring that plant home in case it does have an underlying condition. You can like knock it out right away, and this will help ensure the longevity and health of your plant. This Houseplant Care 101 series is sponsored by rePotme.com. With rePotme, you can have all of your houseplant supplies delivered right to your door. They are a one-stop shop for all of your houseplant, orchid, or succulent needs. They have custom handmade houseplant soils ranging from tropical houseplants, cactus and succulents, pothos, snake plants, and more. I cannot live without their clear slotted orchid pots. They have amazing houseplant fertilizers and so much more. I've included their link in my description below, and you can get 10% off any soil with my code Ashley. So first up, let's talk about the things to keep in mind when you are plant shopping. The first thing you want to know is, what kind of plant parent are you? Are you the type of plant parent who is probably going to have a routine watering schedule? Like you look forward to that every single day. That's your therapy. So you know you're going to take really good care of your plants. Or are you the type of plant parent who's like maybe lower maintenance? You'll get to it when you get to it. Because that's really going to determine the type of plants that will thrive in your home. I am a low maintenance plant parent, so I really like to get plants that are kind of low care, easy care, don't need a lot of maintenance. The other good thing to know is an idea of where you're going to put that plant and how much lighting you're getting in that area. So if it's an area where you're not going to get much lighting, you want to choose a plant that can handle lower light conditions. If you go to a plant nursery, a lot of times they'll have sections for lower light plants versus plants that need higher light. And then if you have a plant that's like in a window, choose a plant that can handle those higher light conditions. So you've been doing some plant shopping, you see a plant that you like. We have a pothos here. This is a fabulous type of plant. All pothos varieties are fabulous, easy care, low maintenance plants. So of course I have a lot of pothos varieties, being a low maintenance plant mom myself. So here's some things you want to do. First of all, you want to check the leaves. You want to make sure they look healthy. You want to make sure there's no brown spots, which could indicate bacteria. And you want to make sure there's no pests on the leaves, and kind of just do a very, very, very thorough look, because that's one of the things, like your plant can look good, but it could have like a hidden pest infestation. And then you bring it home and in a month or two, you notice the plant is like basically too far gone. But sometimes you'll notice at the store that it has like the cover pot and then the nursery pot. So you just want to pull out the nursery pot, and don't be shy at the nursery to look at the roots, because you're investing a lot of money in this plant. You want to make sure you get a good one. If you don't want to repot your plant rather quickly upon bringing it home, try to get a plant that's not too root bound and has some room for the roots to grow. Otherwise, you're going to have to repot it pretty quickly. Now, if you know you want to repot that plant maybe in better soil, then it won't matter so much on if it's root bound or not. So here you go. Here's an example of what some good healthy roots look like. You see how they're white. They don't have any brown mushy stuff on there. They don't have any root rot. You don't see any like pests in there, so it looks pretty good. Now you see how root bound that is. This plant is ready for a repotting. You can see like the roots were coming out the bottom of the pot. So a plant like this, you would want to repot it, you know, shortly after bringing it home if possible, especially if it's the growing months in the summer. But you just want to take a look at the roots, make sure they're really good. You know, at some of these plant stores, especially like big box shops, the plants will sit in water for a while and they can develop root rot. That's why it's really important to check the roots for root rot and pests. That's mainly what we're looking for here. But something like this looks pretty good. If the plant has root rot, it's not going to show it right away. That's the kind of thing that you're going to bring it home and then notice a few weeks later, why is my plant's leaves turning brown? Well, it has root rot when you purchased it, so that's not on you. And it's really hard to bring a plant back from root rot. It's not impossible to bring a plant back once it has root rot, but it can be challenging and tricky, and especially if it had it at the store, if you can just do a quick peek at the roots and kind of prevent from having to deal with it later, totally worth it. Also check if it has care instructions. Like this one came with care instructions. If you're at a specialty nursery or a regular plant shop that's not a big box shop, you could ask an associate or somebody working there, hey, what are the care instructions for this plant? Because it's really, really helpful to know what to do. They may have some tips and tricks. You know, certain plants like calatheas appreciate distilled water. And somebody working at the nursery would definitely know to tell you that. They'll also let you know if a plant needs some extra humidity, and maybe you want to get a humidifier if you don't have a lot of humidity in your zone, those types of things. So don't be shy. People who work at those stores love to talk plants, just like I do, and you do too, and they'd be super happy to give you any advice. And also, Google's your best friend. When you're transporting your plant, if it's extremely, extremely hot, definitely don't leave your plant in your car. I've made that mistake before. And the other thing is, if it's really cold, it can go into shock just from going from the store to your car. So you'll just want to make sure that you cover it up with a bag or something if you're running that plant outside to your car in the freezing cold. So you picked out a healthy plant and you decided to bring it home. Here's your checklist of things to do upon bringing it home. First of all, you want to wash off the leaves, preferably with something with a somewhat powerful spray nozzle, whether that's in your shower or sink or an outdoor hose, and you want to spray those leaves and just make sure that you get under the leaves, on top of the leaves. You want to give that plant a good rinse off, because even though you didn't see pests, there may be eggs on the plant, and you want to make sure that you try to get anything that's residual on those leaves off. Step 2 is you want to make sure you quarantine that plant for at least a week, if not 10 days to 2 weeks. And this will basically ensure that if your plant does have a pest issue, it's not going to spread to all of your other plants. You may want to repot your plant upon bringing it home. It may be root bound like this one is, or it may have incorrect soil, because you know these tropical plants need a well-draining soil mixture, and a lot of times they're not potted up with a soil that's well-draining enough. You may have a pot that you like that you want to put your plant in. So I would recommend either making your own soil blend or purchasing a customized soil blend made specifically for tropical plants, or the variety that you ended up coming home with. So if you do end up making your own soil, you want it to look something like this. If you notice, this has like a lot of perlite and pumice, it has some activated charcoal, and then it also has like potting mix in there to help retain moisture. So you'll want to use a 50% potting mix and then a 50% other substrate, whether it's orchid bark, perlite, pumice, whatever, to help promote it to be well draining. This is the potting mix from rePotme.com. This is the Houseplant and Tropical potting mix. I love rePotme's soils. They are our partner for my Houseplant Care 101 series for good reason, because I'd only recommend the best for all of you, and their potting mixes are insanely good. They also have ones for like Monstera, Philodendron, money trees, aloe, cactus and succulents, Hoya, the list goes on and on. So if you bring a Hoya home and you're unsure of how to like what exactly you want the soil to look like, then just get a Hoya potting mix, because there are great options out there and you know it's specifically customized. And it's so worth it, because you only have to repot your plants like every 1 to 2 years or more. And you want to make sure that you have the right potting mix so you don't have to worry about root rot. You know that plant's not going to be overwatered, and it's well draining enough for the plant, and you'll have ease of mind for the next few years. Again, we're just going through things that you can do initially that will help ensure the health of your plant and longevity of your plant. So one of those things is like a clear nursery pot. You can still put this in a really pretty cover pot. It doesn't have to be this on display, but this way you can keep track of the moisture in the soil, and you can keep an eye on the roots, make sure, you know, there aren't any issues. And you just want to make sure that whatever type of nursery pot or pot you get in general just has a lot of really, really good drainage. And if your plant is root bound and you decide you want to repot, you'll want to go 1 to 2 inches bigger than the pot it currently has. Do not go bigger than that, because the ratio of roots to soil will be too much soil for the roots, and your chances of the soil retaining too much water will be higher. I like to proactively treat my plants when I bring them home. I think because I have so many plants that I just go ahead and proactively treat them so that I don't get a pest infestation. And one of the ways that I do that is with systemic granules. I just sprinkle this into the soil, and it has instructions on how much on the back. And this helps prevent a lot of the pests that you're going to see kind of pop up on houseplants. And I usually pair this up with an insecticidal soap that I'll spray on the leaves. And I'll do that every couple of months just as a preventative measure. Also, it's important not to panic if you notice that your plant is acclimating. So a lot of times these plants are coming from greenhouses and very tropical environments into our home, and there's going to be an acclimation period. So you may notice some crisping on the leaves. You may notice that the plant is just kind of, I don't know, it's just acclimating to your house. So keep an eye out for the new growth. And if you see that the new growth is looking good, then you're totally fine. If you notice that the new growth is looking a little crispy or struggling, that would be a good idea to either get a humidifier, maybe adjust the lighting conditions a little bit to different lighting. It might be getting too much or too little light. I have all sorts of videos on how to tell if your plant is getting too much or too little light. And make sure you stay on top of watering. You know, don't let that plant go too long without being watered, because especially if it's used to coming from a very humid environment, it's going to appreciate being watered regularly when it's about halfway to fully dry for most of these tropical plants. It's super important to fertilize your plants, especially during the growing months, but when you bring that new plant home, I'd hold off on fertilizing it for a while because it was probably fertilized at the store, or even the soil could have some fertilizer pellets in there. That's why it's always a really good idea to take a look at the soil so you know what you're dealing with, and potentially repot so you know exactly how much fertilizer your plant is getting so you don't over fertilize or under fertilize. And if you decide not to repot, then I'd wait a few weeks before you give it a little upfeeding. But don't forget to fertilize, super important. Another pro tip to keep on your checklist is to keep your plant away from cold windows and drafts, especially air vents. That can really affect the tropical plants. And the last thing I'll say is whether we have one plant or 100 plants, we've all dealt with a plant not making it, and that's just part of the journey, part of the learning process. And if that's the case, don't be hard on yourself. Go out and get yourself another plant and give it another go. So there's a high-level checklist for you of things to keep in mind when you are plant shopping, and also when you bring your plant home, what to do. Like I said at the beginning, a lot of times if your plant is struggling, like weeks or months after bringing it home, it can be from things that were wrong at the plant store. And there's something going on with that plant that you didn't even realize. So hopefully these tips and tricks will help prevent you from choosing a plant that has an underlying condition. And if it does have an underlying condition, upon bringing it home, you can like tackle it at the very beginning so it wipes it out and it's not a problem weeks or months down the road. I hope this is helpful. Like I said, this is all trial and error. So I've had to learn the hard way on a lot of these things. And definitely leave in the comments if you have any additional tips and tricks. I'm always learning new stuff, and we have a very knowledgeable plant community. And if you are interested in any of the products that I mentioned, again, rePotme is 10 out of 10. Definitely recommend all of their products. I've included a link in my description below, or links to all of the different products. And I have a lot of episodes on plant care, so feel free to ask any questions too. I'll try to answer them as I see them. Feel free to subscribe if you want to see future plant videos in your newsfeed, and we also have a wonderful community on Instagram. All right, I hope you have a wonderful rest of the day, and I get to see you soon. Bye.